Oh, let me just. Oh, yeah. Okay, yeah, we're good to go.
Okay.
I just wanted to make sure that I am
Yeah,
logged
it's
in.
recording because it's not, it will be disappointing.
Yeah. Okay. Perfect. So yeah. So here we are together, wanting to give people some interesting um, pieces of knowledge regarding states of awakening, regarding meditation, regarding what does awakening mean on a personal level. What does awakening mean in terms of the benefits, let's say, because in the world that we live,
Mhm.
nobody does anything unless there is some kind of benefit for it. So,
Yeah.
here we are. I will introduce myself and then I'll ask you, Andres, to introduce yourself. So, my name is Delson Armstrong, and I am a meditation teacher. And I've been practicing meditation for the last now, it has been about 20 years, a little over 20 years. And I've been following all kinds of different traditions since the age of 16. I started my journey when I explored yoga when I was in the Himalayas with my teacher. And I learned yoga philosophy, Vedanta philosophy, Sankhya philosophy in those 3 or 4 years. And later on, I was initiated into Kriya Yoga. I've done a little bit of Tibetan practice, including Dzogchen and Mahamudra, and some tantric practices. But my main focus of teaching is really understanding what awakening is and utilizing the core teachings of the Buddha. We can say the earliest Buddhist texts, which are known as the Pali Canon, and I teach from there when I give retreats, mostly in the U.S., Europe, and some parts of Asia. So, what are the early Buddhist texts? They are basically purported to be what the Buddha taught in his lifetime with regards to what the Four Noble Truths are, what suffering is, what the end of suffering is, and the two or three main things I teach from there are essentially jhanas, which we will get into, what is awakening and freedom of mind, and something called dependent origination, which is a vast topic, and we will see if we touch upon that, but might be another episode. So this is who I am, and this is what I teach, and I'll hand it over to you, Andres.
Okay. Thank you. So, my name is Andrzej Stasiak. So, I teach meditation in Poland. I've been practicing almost 10 years meditation. And the turning point in my practice was like meeting Twim, which you probably know that, and the relaxation. And from this moment, my meditation like explode. It was really fast progress. I experienced this progress, especially through jhanas. And this is the topic of today. So I just want to talk more about it because when I first met these jhanas, it was like I was looking for a meditation teacher, and my first trial was like the trying to this absorption jhanas, and then I find twin, and when I tried this method, it was like mind blowing, really nice progress. And my teaching is based mostly on my strugglings with life because I've got lots of experiences so-called bad that I've never thought that would be like power for me in the future because now I see like completely different this. It's like with those opportunities like
Mm.
addictions, severe addictions from drugs, alcohol, and problems. And this is funny stuff because when I first met meditation, I thought that it's a new idea for building new idea about myself. Oh, I gonna be meditator. And then I didn't know for what I was assigning. And then oh, this is like the construction. Oh, and I was struggling with anxiety and stuff. And I teach like mostly from my heart. and I have got an approach that is slightly mixed with psychology, but I like talking about Dhamma with very ease approach, like something like being more yourself, which is it could be understand with a different way, but which is what is most important in what I'm teach is just this is because we too much struggle to get something and to get somewhere, and we always imagine who I'm going to be with meditation. And what I've learned from meditation that the gateway to understanding anatta or gateway to understanding dependent origination is being yourself, because when you could be yourself, the tension is relaxed, and then you can open to something deeper. What really mean being yourself, in not in terms in psychological way, but in terms of Dhamma, how the Dhamma manifests in this way. So I approach really ease and fun in meditation, no struggle, because I was struggling, and because addictions, I was really tense, and to this day I experience like the factor of control, which is, I think, a big problem for many meditators. Then we're trying to control, and we control the control, and we go into infinite loop with controlling mind, which is a problem probably for many people. And I think it's what I want to say about me to start.
Yeah. Yeah. Perfect. Perfect. Thank you. So, some things that struck me when you were talking about yourself is you mentioned something regarding absorption jhanas versus, the jhanas you learn through TWIM. Can you tell us a little bit more about what you mean by absorption and how you understand what
Uh, it
absorption
was like
is?
it was like forcing your attention on an object. I've never get far away with this stuff, but I was trying to get, and I found even the teacher uh, who was former monk and was trying to teach me how to get it, this jhana, but this creates only more struggle in me, and I had really tense body, and the factor of control, lots of control in me. So it's when I was trying to get somewhere, the meditation like was getting me worse, like feeling worse and worse and worse, and there was no insight in this. It was like, just trying to calm mind and just get rid of experience, which is bad, because
Mm,
when the mind is really concentrated, there is a bliss. Really, it's a nice, and you could be really easily attached to this state, especially when you have, like me, some inclination towards pleasant states. So it might, because addiction is like some inclination to pleasantness and avoiding, something painful. So I was clinging to getting somewhere, create all the time more tense, more tense, more tense. And then I've met teaching of Bhante Villaramsi. I was looking for a metta stuff on the internet, and I found relaxation, and it was like, wow. At the beginning, I wasn't convinced because my mindfulness changed, and I felt like, oh, it's too easy. I was, how to say, I was not so comfortable, which
mm,
is easy stuff to do. The mind was
mhm,
like trying, no, 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 we need to work hard, hard, hard to
mm,
get somewhere. And yeah,
yeah. Yeah, I think this is very important to understand because a lot of people take meditation very seriously. You see oftentimes you go to monasteries and they're all very serious and solemn and, they feel like they're at peace. But I think when we look at something like TWIM, which stands for Tranquil Wisdom Insight Meditation, it comes from the distillation of the teachings of the Buddha in accordance with what's known as tranquilizing formations. And this is different from what has happened over a period of time as the meditation community teachers and even practices have evolved. And you see that a lot of the traditional Buddhist circles that are rooted in Burma and Thailand and Sri Lanka, they take a lot of their teachings from something known as the Visuddhimagga, and not necessarily originally from the suttas. The suttas here are the early Buddhist
Jest
texts,
godzina 17.
and in this Visuddhimagga, there are a lot of practices that are provided, but they come from an understanding of being super concentrated, as you were saying, and I think that has become the norm for a lot of people when they start out in practice. Even in Indian practices, it's like focus over here or focus over here and put all your attention there, or when you're focusing on the breath, put all your attention there. And as you mentioned, Bhante Vimaramsi, he struggled quite a lot to find, what was the way that seems to work in a natural way, in a way that is progressive. He spent many years in Burma and Thailand and went through the process of what's known as insight practices. Insight here is just, vipassana in a very dry way of just focusing on the breath, looking at the arising and passing away of things. But what he found at the end of that is that he didn't notice any kind of personality change. He didn't notice any kind of happiness, really. So, just to give you a brief history of what happened as TWIM evolved or came to be, is as far as I have understood, Bante then went to Malaysia and met with a monk named Bante Punaji, who has now passed on, but is a very well respected monk in Malaysia and those parts of the world. He's, I think, originally a Sri Lankan monk. And he suggested to Bante, why don't you start teaching from the suttas themselves? So Bante had an opportunity to actually spend some time in a cave uh, reading through what's known as the Majjhima Nikaya. It's the middle length discourses. And he tried this process of relaxing the tightness and tension in the body and in the mind wherever he went. And he noticed when he did that, his mind was clear, his mind was uplifted. And then when you add the smile, the mind gets even more uplifted, the mind gets even more mindful. So, he kind of took all the different pieces that he saw from the Majjhima Nikaya, which is the distillation of whatever you need in order to understand the path of, practice within Buddhism. And it was later that this developed into what's known as TWIM. So TWIM is really just the English short form for what's known as samatha and vipassana. So the samatha here is the serenity, the collectedness of the mind being focused, the mind being calm, the mind being tranquil. And then the vipassana is the insight that arises when you understand how your mind moves, how your mind creates its own suffering, how your mind creates craving, and when you let go, how the mind experiences release, how the mind experiences freedom, how the mind experiences happiness. So the tranquil wisdom insight is the samatha vipassana meditation. And the jhanas that are present in this particular um, understanding of the practice are differentiated by the fact that it is about letting go. When we concentrate and we try very hard, what we're trying to do is we're constructing a state of mind.
Yeah.
We're trying to bring up something. Whereas this practice is all about letting go. And through the process of relaxing, the mind actually enters into these different states known as jhanas. So speaking of jhanas, how would you see what jhanas are? What is your experience of jhanas?
Mm. At the beginning, I didn't know what is jhana. I was thinking more like, some states of mind. But now I think the jhanas, it's like the level of relaxation. This is the level of relaxation, and if we take what you said about twim, that this is the insight and vipassana, samatha and vipassana together, it's like relaxing and being aware, like Tejajina says. He says in a different context, but this is really what we are talking about. We're talking about the relaxed mind and open awareness that allow every object to arise and pass away. And that in this way, we can have an insight and see, because when I was looking for understanding what is dependent origination, what is awakening, at the beginning I was thinking about understanding something intellectually, like, okay, how to understand what is dependent origination, what is this self-sense arising, and to understand meditation, we don't need to let go the intellectual mind and see how the intellectual mind arises.
Hmm.
So we need to stability of the mind, which is, we call this concentration, but really it's I think a misleading word, because for me it's a better word. Sorry for, because my first language is Polish, and I understand it more like stability of the mind. So when the mind is composed, when all object can arise without the movement of the mind. And to do this, we need relaxation. And the jhanas, it's a it's really the level of how you can relax, how the mind is relaxed, until the point that mind is completely relaxed and it's gone. And we gone into Nirodha and Nibbana, and we can think about the level of relaxation, level of composement, or like the mind is collected, or the level of insight, or as one day I said, I heard from you, the level of cessation to suffering too, because this is connected. So we can talk about it in a very creative way
Hmm.
about jhanas. But for me, it's a way of it's a level of relaxation. How much the mind is relaxed to experience deeper samadhi.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think the question that arises for most people is, what are these jhanas in the form of, like, what will they do for me? Uh, because a lot of people come into meditation for different reasons. A lot of people come to retreat for different reasons. Maybe they are dealing with stress at work, or they're dealing with, having broken up with someone, or some stressful situation, or maybe they just want some time off from their life so that they can kind of spend more time uh, in what they feel is a peaceful environment, and where they can experience greater degrees of relaxation. And that is the key, and some people may be coming from a more traditional background, and they may come from, let's say, Goenka style vipassana, or Mahasi style vipassana, or maybe they're coming from the Zen tradition, or whatever it might be. And maybe they come in with certain ideas of what it means to be on a twin retreat, or what it means to be on a retreat with myself and with you, because I know, we have our own styles of teaching, and our own styles of talking about these things. But I think it would be important for people to understand, like, what do we do when we're on this retreat with relation to jhanas. And the way I
Yeah,
would see it, I would say that, yes, jhanas are levels of understanding, they're levels of cessation, and jhanas help us to really start to notice that there is another form of pleasure or joy that is not dependent upon the outside world. So, one of the ways in which the Buddha has contextualized this is, he said there's this world and there's the other. When he says this world, it's the world of the senses, the eyes, the ears, the nose, the tongue, and the body. And the other world is the world of the mind. The mind is that which is the chief, as they say, the forerunner of all states. So the mind, if you're able to bring an innate inner pleasure in the mind, your mind automatically disengages with the outside world. So the idea here is, we're dealing with what are known as hindrances. And
Mm.
hindrances are like sensual craving, aversion or hatred, um, restlessness, sloth and torpor, and doubt. The uncertainty of what's happening in the mind. So when we learn the process, like for example in the twin practice, there's something known as right effort, and this is usually called the 6 R's. In English, it's to recognize, to release, to relax, to re-smile, to return, and repeat when necessary. So what does that actually mean? It means that when you are noticing as you're meditating, whatever object you take on, that the mind gets distracted, it goes somewhere else. As soon as you recognize that, that's the first R, you regain your mindfulness. You become aware of what that means. You become aware of the mind having moved somewhere instead of on it being on its object. And after you recognize, you release that state, that, let's say, unwholesome state, that state of distraction, and you relax any tightness and tension. So if your mind has been trying too hard, if it's becoming constricted, you relax that and re-smile, because you start off the practice with smiling a little bit. When you see the image of a Buddha, you'll see a little smile, and this helps to uplift the mind. And then you come back to your object, whatever that might be, and then stay with it for as long as you can without trying too hard. Just relaxing into the object is the way I look at it. And the more we do this, what happens is there's something called the first jhana, which is the factors of that first jhana include certain things. So first of all, what is jhana? Like, how will we define what jhana is? So, I'm somebody who uh, has studied Sanskrit in the past, who kind of has looked at many different texts. So for me, the understanding of Pali is very synonymous with Sanskrit. Pali being the language of the early Buddhist texts. And if you look at the word jhana, it comes from the Sanskrit dhyana, which means to put your attention onto something, to place your attention on something. So placing the attention and focusing or trying too hard really are two different things. I think it's about resting your attention so that the attention stays stabilized, instead of us forcing our attention to be somewhere and then like putting down something to force it to be there. We're just saying we're bringing our attention gently on the object, and we're remaining there as gently as possible. And when it gets distracted, we use the 6 R's to relax back into that. So this is how we work with the attention. So the jhanas are these different states. There are four, you know, jhanas, and from there certain other states that are known as the formless states. And the first jhana is basically the withdrawing the mind from sensual experiences. So we close our eyes generally, we sit in a silent space, and there are very few sensual experiences happening for the mind. And we are withdrawn from those unwholesome states, from those hindrances that I was referring to, as a result of which the mind relaxes and experiences a joy because of that seclusion. And what's known as piti, that's the joy and comfort in the body. And we start with bringing up an object, whether it's focusing on the breath or with loving kindness or any other object. And that process is known as the vitakka and vichara. It's the placing of the mind on an object and keeping the mind on the object. And after a while, the mind experiences what's known as ekagata. Now, generally, the consensus is that ekagrata means one pointedness. Actually, it just means that the mind's attention is unified, it's collected, it's composed. So when we have that, um, we are basically entering into the first jhana.
Yeah. Um, so so we provide, because I'm trying to summarize to what you said, and simple words, what we going to provide in this retreat, it's like we can think about jhanas like useful map to know where we are in the practice and what to do. Because when we talk about five hindrances, they usually start with craving, like a, you know, like a first, but I don't know why I would put at the first place doubt.
Mm, interesting.
Yes, I would put, because this is my personal experience, and I know uh, how important it is to know how to practice.
Yeah.
If you don't have a map and you don't have a tool, and when we are talking about 6 hours, which is right effort, it's like a heart of this whole practice. And if we do this in a wrong way and we don't know how to do it, and didn't know and we don't know where we are going,
Mm,
we are really in doubt. We're thinking how to practice, when I'm in my practice, what to do now. So to simplify what you said, it's the jhanas are just a really good map to know where you are. Really easy to know where you are and what to do, because the practice is really simple. What we need to do, which is, I think, what is really hard in meditation, is to have enough sada, which is called like a faith, but I don't know it's a good translation, because I understand it not in a way like faith in something, but some confidence,
yeah. Yeah.
some confidence to do the practice as a teacher said, because I had been struggling a long, very long, to, and I had a problem to understand that what I need to do is just stay with object of meditation and do 6 hours. Do this in the right way. So recognize, release, relax, re-smile, and come back to object of meditation. And that's it. And know where I am. So just have this Dhamma Vichaya factor to just
Mm,
observing and knowing where I'm in my practice. Because when we go into second jhana, there is slight shift in your awareness, and it feels like going more into flow, because in the first jhana it's like there is just a little bit effort to maintain this vichara vitaka, your attention on object meditation, and in one moment you feel that the words, when if you wish or if you stay in other object meditation, you feel that you go more like automatic way, like more natural. But the mind is going into flow, and then the second jhana open. And if you have this information, because have a map, you know what to do. Because you can, if you don't have this map at the beginning, you can just struggle and wishing or trying to uh, put more effort in this than just allow to uh, to begin or evolve this jhana to the second jhana. And we, of course, go further and further. So the map and the tool how to bring your attention back is really important to know. And this is what we provide in this system of meditation, to simple explanation and simple tools based on the relaxation and kindness.
right. Right. Yeah. And I think that's a great way of bringing into, how we look at, the progression of this path. So kindness, you brought up a very important word there. We often think that a meditation retreat is basically that we're just focusing on meditation. But I personally like to teach it in very much the same way as the Buddha teaches in the early texts, which is that he starts off with what's known as sila. And there's this progressive path of sila, samadhi, and uh,
Yeah.
panya. And so sila is, part of that is kindness. Are we kind to ourselves, and are we kind to the people around us or the beings around us? And it's really about understanding that not causing ourselves harm and not causing another person harm. And so once we start to develop that understanding that we want to be truthful in our conversations, we want to be honest in how we deal with people, we don't want to cheat people, we don't want to lie, we don't want to cause any kind of harm, we don't want to steal, we don't want to take things away that is not given, these kinds of things. This is really the golden rule if you see it from the perspective of it's a universal process. You see this in all traditions that you do to others as you would want to be treated. And most people want to be treated with respect and with kindness and with acceptance and being seen and heard. So if you want that, then spread that to the world in your behavior, in your mind, in your speech, and in your actions. When you have this, it's very easy, or it's easier for the mind to start experiencing samadhi. So sila, the word sila means foundation. That's the foundation of the path. That literally means the bedrock of the path. And samadhi is basically even-mindedness. So sama here is the equilibrium of states, and sama is same, sama. And dhi is the intellect, the mind. So the even-mindedness then allows us to enter into jhana, and that those processes of the jhanas that we're talking about are incorporated within the umbrella of samadhi, as a result of which we experience insight, which is the panya, the insight into the true nature of reality, the understanding of what is this process that we call life and existence. And that's the vipassana part, as a result of which we become awakened and experience some freedom from suffering. So the transition then from the first and the second jhana, as you rightly put, is that there's a more flow in the mind. The mind experiences a lot more confidence. You talked
Confidence.
about saddha. That's a good word, I think. Confidence, a certain kind of like autopilot mode where you don't have to keep thinking about the object. Now the object stays with you. The awareness stays with you. The mind remains alert and calm and collected. And the joy that's there, the uplifted state, becomes deeper. It becomes a little stronger because of the collectedness. And after a while, as we're in this space, now here's the interesting thing. A lot of people expect, uh, that the joy only gets bigger, or the joy only gets more profound, and we experience bliss. And in many traditions, we may take that idea that awakening means like we're always in bliss. But through the process of jhanas, we see that bliss is just another conditioned state. Joy is another conditioned state. And after a while, you see that joy disappears when you get into the third jhana. And what replaces it is a further deepening of comfort and ease in the body, a deepening of clarity, a deepening of contentment. This experience of tranquility and contentment and serenity um, is much more long lasting, much more sustainable than bliss. And so people realize that, oh, this is actually something I can take with me wherever I'm going. And I think that's the beauty of the 6 R's, or right effort, and the process of jhanas, which is I can access these states just by relaxing and letting the mind calm down and collect itself. And I can use the 6 R's in situations which are agitating, which are difficult, which are causing me, anxiety. I can just recognize that, release the attention from that, relax, bring up a smile if I need to, and then come back to the present moment. And when I have that, I'm activating my prefrontal cortex. I'm activating the part of the mind that can can do what needs to be done as per what is required for the situation at hand. So I'm acting out of wisdom. I'm responding from wisdom rather than from reacting. And so the third jhana, and this is what it said in the texts, that the third jhana is the state of the noble ones. It said that he has a pleasant abiding, uh, and that's what the noble ones talk about. When we say noble ones, we're talking about people who are, let's say, awakened. So that's the natural state of the mind, where the mind is calm, collected, free of hindrances, and has a lot of contentment.
Yes. And you touch very important thing, because our human minds really like to think about meditation and awakening like the state that we can just attach and grab it. And when we go in this, and we progress through these jhanas, we can see that even jhanas are impermanent. And what is really, and it's what is open when we go from this transition now, from the third jhana to fourth jhana, it's really what changes. It's the deep equanimity which arises. Because when we think about meditation, when I met meditation first time, I was thinking that I'm going to grab something and it's gonna stay with me. Oh, and I was always disappointed when I didn't get what I want and what I can't get rid of from my life. And when I was progressing through the jhanas, I saw that even jhanas are impermanent, and what we are really practicing is just a community, being really
Mm,
equanimous, what is arising, because we can't get rid of our senses, our nervous system, and it is responding. I'm very sensitive person for the food, for the everything, and I was hoping that meditation is going to erase this.
mm,
And then I discovered it's not about erasing sensations and stuff, it's just having space. And this is what changes when we go in this transition. That when in the third jhana, we thought that some parts of the body sometimes disappear, like and etc. And then we go further, and the body starts to almost all disappear, because I think the whole disappearance of the body is like in a fifth jhana, when the spaciousness is
right.
open and we have more spaciousness in this place. But how I feel the transition from the third to fourth jhana is like all these tensions and hindrances, and I would say like the reaction for the mind for the feeling pleasantness or the painful Vedana, it's like going into background. Suddenly it's not a big deal to just stay. It's just the feelings. And this is, we start to feel, oh, this is equanimity. It's not the same what is tranquility. It's something different. It's very clear mind. It's very clear mind that doesn't react. You feel that I the best thing that arises in my mind is say like in a glass, but it's I think it's a not a good explanation, because we don't create barrier, but the feeling is they just flow, and the mind is stopped grabbing pleasant feeling and stopped avoiding unpleasant feeling, and you feel really balanced, really balanced. This is so you can felt this balance in your of the meditation progress. And I think this fourth jhana is necessary to see subtle stuff when we talk
Mm,
when we start talking about dependent origination, because this is like the foundation for the Buddhist teachings. And if we want to see how it works, we need some stability of the mind, because when the mind is haphazard by hindrances, but because of awareness, because of doubt, so we go into stream of thoughts all the time. We don't have a space to understand how it works, because
mm,
one day I got to the realization that really awakening happens in a place when you distract. And when you start meditation, it's like you distracted, you off, on, off, on,
Mm,
off, on. But when you progress in a jhanas, you see, oh, there is not off, on. There is a contact, there is a feeling, there is a craving, there is a upadana, there is a bhava.
mm,
Oh, again suffering, again the self arising and karma. And it's in this space of how we distract. So we need enough stability of the mind to see the process of distraction, because
mm,
when we think about it, when we met the meditation first time with him, I'm distracted or not distracted? But this is not true. There is a field of phenomena that is going, arising and passing away. And if you can just able to see how it works, this is really give you a deep insight with in how suffering and karma arises and passes away.
Yeah, this is a very, very important point about this practice, which is, the jhanas, as you put, are impermanent. You start to realize that the jhanas change on their own based on the causes and conditions. So, um, there's a beautiful sutta called Anupada Sutta, which is the one by one as they arose, and this is the journey of Sariputta, one of the chief disciples of the Buddha. And he talks about how he actually looks into the states of the different jhanas and he says, having arisen, he saw them arising. Having passed away, he saw them pass away. And he saw that there is a greater state than this, there is a greater escape than this. But the other factors there is also the investigation, which happens quite naturally. You're pinpointing towards, as you said, contact, feeling, the craving, the clinging, the becoming, and the birth of action, which is really the mechanics of karma and the whole process of the Buddha Dharma, the teachings of the Buddha, is to alleviate suffering by understanding karma, and we start to see this for ourselves in the practice when we're meditating. The hindrance that may come up, the craving or the doubt or whatever might come up, that is karma. That's something that we're meeting right here, right now, in the present moment. And how do we choose to deal with that will determine whether that hindrance becomes stronger. The initial reaction is to push away or like just slap away the hindrance and say, I'm going to come back to my object. But that's a reaction that causes more suffering. That's a reaction that's like, you may suppress the mind. You may feel like your mind is experiencing a lot of great concentration, and you may experience a lot of joy, maybe some contentment through the day. But then one little trigger happens, and there's a whole cascade of reactions that come up, which is the dependent origination. So by dealing with the hindrance in this way, it actually has a effect in how we deal with the hindrance in everyday life. So the mind, and when we're in meditation and when we're in jhana, is really like a laboratory. We're testing out how the mind is working by seeing the arising of a hindrance or the passing away of a hindrance, the arising of a jhanic state, and the passing away of a jhanic state. And so, as you say, the fourth jhana, you have deep, a deeply contemplative mind, and it's a deeply mindful awareness. In fact, the suttas, they talk about it as it's the purity of mindfulness due to equanimity. It's a very interesting statement, purity of mindfulness due to equanimity, which means that it's neither here or there. It's neither good or bad, neither pleasant nor unpleasant. The mind is just seeing things as they are. It's not holding on to anything. It's not pushing away anything. It's just completely free of that duality of push and pull. It just observes things as they are. And in observing things as they are, there's a deep clarity, in terms of the body. If we're working with something like loving kindness, the metta practice, which is generally how I would teach for an object of meditation, what are known as the Brahma Viharas. And the Brahma Viharas are essentially the four sublime states of mind, or the four sublime, um, you can say, attitudes of the mind. One is loving kindness, the second is compassion, the third is empathetic joy, and the fourth is equanimity. So if we're taking, usually start off with loving kindness, which is a recognition of our own wholesome states and the recognition of the goodness of others, like a friend that we may think of who uplifts the mind when we think about them. And the practice there is to cultivate that loving kindness by keeping the mind resting in that. And after a while, there's a somatic experience where we feel warmth in the heart, or we feel this energy or vibration of loving kindness in some way. And we may feel the loving kindness start to expand. And when that's happening, we're entering into the deeper jhanas, the third and fourth jhana, where we might be starting to lose awareness of the body. Maybe the body feels lighter, or the body feels very rooted and grounded. And then by the time we're in the fourth jhana, the mind starts to become more expansive. So we're more over here, generally speaking. So the loving kindness feels like it's starting to rise up. And when we're in that space, then further instruction is given where we learn to cultivate that loving kindness, to send it out to all beings, indiscriminately, to all beings, no matter who they are, what they are. We send it out in the forward direction. We send it out in the direction behind us. We send it out in the direction to the right, to the left, above us, below us, whatever order we want to do it. And we may do this for a while, and we may feel like a sense of expansion. So the body starts to become less and less profoundly experienced, and there is a spaciousness. And this is what's known as the infinite space, jhana. It's the what we call the formless jhanas, the arupa jhanas. They are actually the extension of the fourth jhana. So we're always in the fourth jhana at this point, but we're experiencing other things concurrent to it, like infinite space. So we may feel like the loving kindness changes. It might change into compassion. And in that compassion, the feeling is softer, gentler, more diffuse. And the experience of spaciousness is like there's no bounds to that. There's no boundary point. It just keeps going and going and going. And it feels very, very relaxed. It just feels like you have let go of the majority of feeling in the body. And when you do that, any kind of pleasure, any kind of pain is replaced by this sense of expansiveness.
Yeah. I would add that this is the spaciousness and the infinite space is the moment that you really cross the boundary between you and environment. For me, it's like it's dissolving this boundary, because the spaciousness is like, and if there is no spaciousness, still is like some kind of a boundary in us. It's like still it's like I'm just a little bit too limited, and of course anybody can feel this in a different way. But there is like some kind of limitation. This limitation is like dissolving, and you feel more spaciousness, and this spaciousness is um is really curious and important, because this is the place that we really can hold everything, and in a straight way, and not in a straight way. It's because the meditation is and I think about the practice and what I've learned from this practice. It's like having space for everything.
Yes.
And yes, like having space for all the thing. It's this. So this is like when we go, because I also experienced when I was practicing metta, the change with the feeling. For me, it wasn't so vivid, but I felt like the kindness is less warm and going into something with what I would call silk. It was, I
Mm.
think it was the beautiful. I don't know if it's some kind of attachment, but it was like the beautiful feeling like of compassion. It was like silk. If someone touch ever silk, it's like it's has the quality of very smooth,
Mm,
like very light, because the metta is still like a bit more dense, and there is like a lighter state, like this compassion. And I think because there is more a community in this state, like it's a bit deeper, and that's why it is more cooler way. I feel this more cooler way. But what for me is like the important fact, the limitation is gone. You feel like more infinite, and this is yeah,
yeah. I like that description, feeling like silk. And I think you bring up an interesting point about the infinite spaces. That's what compassion also is to hold space for another, right? I mean, when we talk about
yeah,
compassion, it's not just a qualitative feeling that we may feel in meditation, but it's also compassion in action. How do we be compassionate with others? Hold space for them, be able to just listen to what they have to say. Some people just need that, is they need somebody that they can talk with or talk to about their problems, and we may not need to say anything. Just the holding of the space of listening to what they have to say helps to relieve any of that tension they may feel, any of that suffering they may feel. So compassion is, it's not about looking down at the other person, it's not about having sympathy for the other person. It's about the recognition that I am suffering and you are suffering and others are suffering. And when we can connect through that, then there is a special sort of um, understanding of what compassion is, that I too suffer, so I know what it feels like, and I can empathize, I can understand, I can see, and I can provide just space, or from that space, I can provide some wisdom, some clarity, some help, physically, whatever it is that comes to mind. That doesn't create a crutch for the person that's suffering, but gives them the inspiration to come out of that suffering as well.
yeah. That's my personal reason because um, I used to think about myself that I'm really empathetic for people, but what was really true, I couldn't bear the sensations that suffering of others evoke me, and the space it was the for me it was the place that I finally or eventually I could allow people to suffer and not trying to help, because when I was trying to help, really I was trying to erase
Mm,
my sensations, and then this is and that way I understanding this space like it's okay, the suffering it's common, and if people want to suffer and they don't want to come out, I'm okay with that.
yeah,
I'm okay with that. I have a heart to help, but
yeah,
if you don't wanna this, there is a space for you, and it doesn't change anything. Just if you need more suffering, as many spiritual teachers say about it, because this is true. And even in my case, I needed really, really big amount suffering to do something. I'm okay with that, and I can wait and see, because this is a, I think it's a really difficult art for many of us, because many of us have a role of parents and families, and we see suffering all the time around us, and we want to help sometimes, and we want to sometimes help too much,
yeah,
and we have a problem to just have this compassion. And this compassion means having space for that, having space that someone needs take his lesson on its own.
yeah.
And if yeah, this is yeah,
Yeah, that's a great point. I mean, I'm not a parent myself, but I've seen how parents can be too controlling of children, and I think I've been blessed with parents who have allowed me to make my own mistakes, allowed me to suffer, as you say, allowed me to see that the consequence of my actions is we're not going to be around all the time to help you, and you have to learn how to come out of it yourself. Of course, they are there to give me food and shelter and love and everything else, but if we coddle people, you're just making them into babies rather than capable of being able to come out of it themselves. I can give you an example of when I was a kid, and maybe my father was a bit strict, but I remember when I was in the a boarding school, an international school in India, and I was in the eighth grade, and we were doing our final exam for French. That was one of the subjects, and I was giving my exam, and the guy who was sitting just to my right in front of me, he started like looking back at me, and he said, "Hey, Delson, give me the answers to the test." And I couldn't. I wanted to ignore him, but I was what, only 13, maybe 14, so peer pressure and trying to be a good friend and all these things came up to mind. So what we did was, the invigilator, the examiner, was moving around from one row to the other row, just making sure people. So every time the examiner's back was turned, we would move our tables a little closer, so that I could give him my paper and he could quickly, take put his answers and everything. And then when the examiner's back was turned again, I took the paper back, and so he kept doing this, and we tried to bring the tables back to the original position. Anyway, so what happened is a few days later, I was called into the principal's office, and he said that we know that you have been part of this cheating because we see the answers are very similar in the exam, and we have photos of the before when the seats were where they were, and the after. So we have seen that there has been some movement, and so when my father came to pick me up, he came back from the U.S. to India to take me for the summer holidays, and he found out about this from the principal and from my French teacher, and she said, because of the cheating that happened, both the person who cheated and the person who provided the answers, they're getting a zero, they're getting an F, so both of them have failed the final exam. Otherwise, I would have probably gotten a B plus or an A or something like that. But my father, he basically said, "That's good. That's good. And I think you should even fail him for the class." And the principal was saying that that's a bit too strict. No, no, we will continue so he can continue in the next grade. But my father was just like, whatever has to happen has to happen. He didn't fight for me. He didn't try to save me. He didn't do anything. He just said, this is the consequences of your action. And you should learn that when you do something that is wrong, that there is a consequence to it. So I find that that was a useful gift, from my parents, to be able to give me that space to see that the world is about action and consequence, and to learn what could I have done better, what could I have changed, what could I have prevented from happening. So in the same way, we have friends, we have peers, we have students, we have different people in our lives or different relationships. We have partners, and we give them the enough encouragement, we give them enough advice, everything else, but we cannot take the action for them. We cannot be the savior for them, where we are taking on their karma, taking on the consequences. We can't do that. We have to allow them to see for themselves so that they can learn from their own wisdom and grow. So yeah, that was a little interesting thing about seeing compassion in action and understanding that when you see the suffering of another, it doesn't mean you have to go in immediately and do something about it. You have to see with wisdom what seems to be the appropriate action or non-action. So, how do you see the transition then from the fifth to the sixth? Because infinite
Oh,
consciousness is very interesting.
yeah. To be honest, this is the most enigmatic parts of the jhanas for me, because what was my experience is that I felt the changes of the perception of the space. This is that the perception we have, like the perception of the space, and there is the spaciousness, and this is the place that from this place the spaciousness is like closing. It's not closing; it's still there, but the perception is like going into more awareness, like into for my personal experience is like going into center, like yeah, this is my personal experience. I don't know if other people experience this like that. And for me, it was like the mind. I always had a problem, to be honest, to see really this. I don't know why. And my teacher, that craft also like uh, told me the same story that he passes or like skip it this jhanas and the banta. So, oh, you were there. And no, I didn't notice that. And I thought I also had the problem with this stuff.
Yeah.
But what I noticed in my practice, it was like the changes in this perception and more into like recognizing awareness. And second, it was the mudita. But the feeling was,
Mm.
this is a really interesting feeling, mudita, because this is a joy. But when we thinking about joy, joy is like usually energetic. There's like we feel like more party and etc. But mudita is like somebody have equalizer for joy and just cut out this ecstatic state, and there is like soft
Mm.
pleasantness. Soft pleasantness is like the I'm looking for a good word. It's like the soft joy. That's my soft joy because this joy is from the pity is like more energetic. It's something different. It's sometimes I wouldn't say harsh, but it's like there's more energy, and here is like soft.
Mm. Mm.
We go from the silk to soft pleasantness, soft pleasantness, and in terms of the development of the character, because the meditation is not only keeping your attention on the object all the time, because we keep it this to develop our personality, which I don't know if the people know that, because we've many people thinks about meditation that this is like the calming the mind, but really it's develop your character. So the Brahma Viharas are the development. I even would say something like that, that this is a ancient psychotherapy. This is like was because it
Mm.
wasn't only, erasing, self, but really developing this changing self.
Yeah.
Because if we just erase self, what is the point? Erase self completely. It's understanding that the self, it's not permanent, and still we operate in the world. And how we operate has meaningful impact. So when the
Mm.
meditation is about developing your personality, and part of personality is being able to be happy with success of their people, which sometimes is really difficult. And I had really difficulties in the past with this too, to be happy that other people, because our minds likes judge, and see people like judging all the time. And mudita is seeing deeper something like maybe I tell you some short story when I saw not the feeling of mudita, but this change. I'm really sauna lover, and one day we ran the sauna with my friend and went outside the city in a beautiful place with old wood house with a stone first place, and suddenly the group of people came out, younger people. They are really noisy, and we thought that we going to be only with my friends there. And then they come and they started to laugh and crying cries. And we were sitting with my friend, and my friend says, "Oh, this is really bad." And in my mind arose the thought, "Oh, this is a joy. They have a joy." And then
Mm.
I understand this is mudita. I was happy because these guys have a good time. And and previously my mind was like, oh, I want this is money my place, and only I can have a fun. They That's interrupt my fun, and then I saw, oh, this is the mudita because this these are also very spontaneous in a spontaneous way, and was like, this is okay. People also want to have a fun,
Yeah.
and yeah, and this is how I can say a few words about the mudita. And I experience this in in a different way because sometimes we see people that they have nice cars and they do some stuff that is maybe not so some reckless and that's it, but we can judge this or we can
Mhm.
see that they have a fun. Of course, I'm not talking about taking responsibility how you behave, but out seeing something deeper that sometimes we forgot that we all like to have a fun, and we don't see this, and we also be jealous of that people uh, have success in life, and if we just can see their joy, that this is like feel because recently I was giving a talk and said what meditation changed and how was important for me and what the mechanics in a simple way was in this stuff because I was interested in the past on nonviolent communication and they teach how to see needs and feeling and get more empathy. And I was interested in the stuff which is nice, but meditation gave me something deeper because I got the I get from the mind, like thinking mind, to feeling mind.
Yeah.
And when I meet people, I understand, and when they understand that I more feel than think. And when I more feel than think, and someone is in fear, I don't judge them. They might still could judge, but when I feel this fear, I have more on compassion. When I feel that someone is doing something, I feel their emotions, how they feel, and when I'm in this feeling, I'm avoid judging about. And so there is like natural empathy arising from this stuff. And what we do here is we go from the thinking to feeling and even deeper to clear awareness in a deeper jhanas. But this transition, uh, without it's it's change how you behave, not because you understand needs and feeling, but because you feel your humanness, you feel your being. And when you experience other beings, you can just feel them, which is, I think we forgot about it. But
Yeah.
this is, I think that one of the most wanted skill that we need to acquire in life to just more feel than think because the thinking is over how to say advertised that the
Yeah.
thinking solve your problem. Sometimes the feeling when you can feel everything, it's it also get way to intuition that we probably want to speak later to. Yeah,
Yes.
that's
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's beautiful because being in touch with our mudita allows us to really celebrate in the joy of other people, and I think we have been conditioned as a society, whether it's in Europe or Asia or the US. At this point, we are, in some sense, a global society because we're all sort of connected with social media, for example, and things like that. And it used to be always the case that there is a competitive world that I need to be better than other people. I need to be seen as the top, or if I don't achieve this by this time, then I'm a failure. These are things that always happen in the mind in terms of we think that, and especially with now social media, which amplifies this idea that my friends are doing much better. And generally, we feel terrible about that because we're thinking, how come they're doing so good? What is wrong with me? Why am I not able to experience the success that they're experiencing? And it's not necessarily just the feeling of inadequacy. Then the other part of that is the jealousy, or the envy. I feel not necessarily ill will towards them, but I feel jealousy. I feel like envy, like I want that. And instead of being able to celebrate in that friend's happiness or that particular person's happiness.
Mm.
So mudita is a great deterrent against that feeling of jealousy as well. And one thing I'll add about the interesting transition from the sixth jhana to the seventh, from infinite consciousness to nothingness, is sometimes, if we go deeper into the sixth with infinite consciousness, we might start to see the arising and passing away of different kinds of consciousnesses. So sometimes we may see flickering behind the eyes, or we may hear a little flickering in the ears. It doesn't always happen, and majority of people that I've worked with and students who have come on retreat, they kind of pass by this and they don't necessarily always see this. So don't worry if, as a practitioner, somebody's not experiencing it. Don't worry, it's okay. The whole idea is to go to deeper states of mind. And if you don't experience it, you don't experience it. It's okay. But I just want to point out, like, some people will experience the arising and passing away of this. And what they're seeing is dependent origination. They're seeing contact in every moment, coming and going, coming and going. And this brings the experience of understanding impermanence. And you're seeing that this arising and passing away becomes tiresome. And that's the suffering. That's like, when will this stop? When will this end? And then there's a realization that you are not in control of this process. There is just a process happening. I didn't cause it to happen. I'm not the owner of it. It's happening due to impersonal causes and conditions. So this experience can allow us to see the deepening of impermanence, or the perception of that deepening of impermanence, which then gives us a first-hand glimpse into the nature of suffering, which then allows us to see anatta, the impersonal nature of things, which actually generally will give us a very deep feeling of equanimity if done in this way. So that's the upekkha, that's the equanimity that starts to be experienced in the transitional point and become more apparent in the seventh jhana. So when this process of the arising and passing away of consciousnesses starts to slow down, we start to see the gap between the awareness. We start to enter into this field of nothingness, or what Doug Kraft, as you were mentioning before, might call no thingness. There's no thing that the mind is holding on to. You're not thinking about the outside world. You're not thinking about what's happening. There's just an awareness of nothingness. And sometimes that might come in the form of like a blank space that's dark space or white space or just translucence. It doesn't really matter how that manifests. But what's tied to that is the upekkha. And so,
Yeah.
this upekkha, we radiate outward in different directions, and it's a gentle kind of experience. It doesn't have to be very strong like the metta. I like to give the image of like bringing your mind to a point of very deep stillness, like a still lake, and you have this small pebble that drops into the lake, and it starts to create these rippling effects. So your intention of radiating upekkha is small ripples in the mind that continue outward. And
Mhm.
so, when we say upekkha, I would say upekkha is the letting go of expectations. So we're seeing things as they are without projecting an idea of how things should be. If something is unpleasant, we accept it as being unpleasant. If something is pleasant, we just accept it as pleasant. And when it goes away, we accept that it goes away. So upekkha allows us to be in a calm, serene, tranquil, very stable um, space that is just seeing things as they're unfolding rather than trying to control
Yeah,
things.
yeah. This is a really interesting state, and I would add few things that to this. It's sixth jhana, yeah,
Now we're
sixth
entering
jhana.
into the seventh, yeah, six to the
Yeah,
seventh.
but in a sixth jhana, there is there is no outside world, so this is like the outside world completely dis. Oh,
That's the mudita.
oh, that's the data. The outside world completely disappear. You don't hear any sounds. It's only the mind, and it's like only the flow. There is no separate things. Like there is just flow of phenomena, and you don't hear anything. You just flow. Everything flows, and this is the moment that really um, because you were talking about stories that we hold on our of ourselves, that we are not enough and we are not important and etc. And this is just the stories.
Yeah.
And here the stories, I think it's a place that the construction starts, because there is no place for the stories. It's when we really arises to these places, this is the place that the construction of the self starts, really starts. It's the place from this construction. And um I I was thinking about meditation at the beginning, that this is something intense. And then I recognized that the deepest states of meditation is the subtle states. It's not something, when you said that this equanimity is subtle, yeah, it's not something intense. You are very, very receptive, and this is the really sublime and subtle states of mind, really, really, and to the point that in some in some moment you feel that this radiating. I don't like this word radiating, because for
Mhm.
me it's creating like some push to do something. I just low. I use for myself the word that recognizing in this way,
Mm.
recognizing in this way, recognizing this way, because for me, that just creates more. It creates more tension, and then you feel that this recognizing or just sending is like to tense. The mind start to just tense, getting tense, and then you just stay with what left, and you enter with very interesting states, because at the beginning it looks like you're going into sleep, but there
Mm.
is lots of energy. There's lots of energy, and sometimes you don't know even that you meditate, because there is no you meditating. It's just the flow of the phenomena, and the mind needs some tension to for perception. That perception is connected to memory to create this memory. So the mind is so relaxed when we really don't know. Sometimes we meditate and we do not create the continuum in your mind. The mind is just going, and everything what arising, just it's like on the you use the word Teflon, is like
Mm.
slipping. There's the mind is and sometimes we can just mislead this state with a slow and torpor, but this is not something like slow and torpor. It's very sublime, and you can only reflect when you come out from the state. So
Mm.
when you come out and see, it's like was, and I personally think it's very interesting state, because when you come out from this field, from this state, you feel some kind of a catharsis.
Mm. Yeah.
That's my experience. It's like for the better word, I use catharsis, because that's what come up to my word, because this you are so relaxed.
Mm.
There's no hindrances, and when you come out, you feel wow. There was
Mm.
really really relaxing stuff, And this is important. If somebody got to this state, you need to know that you need to reflect what took you from the state and relax back. And when you go to the quiet mind again, you go again to the
Mm,
state, again to the state, and finally you go to the more interesting stuff. Uh, more interesting stuff, which is Niroda, and this is really interesting stuff, and Nibbana, because if it's hard to imagine that.
right,
It's
right.
hard to imagine that. It's hard to imagine that for the first time. It's hard to what is it really? To be honest, what is Niroda and what is Nibbana? But yeah, as I know, you are worldwide specialist from this topic. So I give you floor to you to talk more about Niroda and Nibbana because this is stuff that is blown mind, especially. And I add the one thing because at the beginning because I missed this that this coming back and relaxation back when the eight jhana something took you from this state, it is really important because cessation is not all. After
Right.
cessation, the craving kick up again,
Right.
and you need to have some habit in your mind to reflect this after this because I didn't did this at the beginning of the first time. It was so powerful experience that I was wow.
Yeah.
There was quite a lot ego in my eyes seeing this because it was whoa, what was it? But
Right.
maybe you
Right.
you can say more about it.
Yeah. Thank you. Well, yeah. I mean, I just want to touch base on this understanding of what you were explaining, which is, it's a very subtle state. This transitional point, and the sutras call them the neither perception or non-perception state. And what does that mean? Neither perception or non-perception. It's like, as you rightly put, it feels like you're asleep, but you're awake at the same time. Um, and maybe little things come up like patterns or disconnected thoughts, or it's like maybe this is a past life. Me, I don't remember ever having this experience. Different kinds of things come up, are very fuzzy, and it's like what I would call like a hypnagogic state. It's that transition when you're about to fall asleep, and there's these kinds of things, which your mind is very alert, which is also very interesting. So this might happen, and you might go through cycles of this coming out and going in, coming out and going in, and the transitional point between equanimity to quiet mind. It is where like the mind feels like it doesn't want to do anything now. It just wants to rest in itself. And you might try to bring equanimity again, but the mind has a tension there. So that's the way to know for a practitioner that okay, now I can just relax into the mind and I can just observe and not do anything. And so the important element, as you mentioned, is reflecting back what took you out of that space, reflecting back when you came out, anything that you didn't see, that you weren't able to recognize, that you can let go of. And that actually brings deeper clarity to the mind. But if, let's say, the mind is here and there's a transition into which the mind goes very quiet and there's very little vibration going on in the mind, eventually it enters into something known as the signless. And the signless or animita, which means that there's no object that the mind holds on to, there's nothing there. And the mind just is like in pure awareness, just looking, but not looking at anything in particular. And after a while, because the mind is not holding on to anything and it's not paying attention to anything, it experiences what's known as nirodha, the cessation of perception and feeling. And it's like some people feel like they're kind of falling into it, or there's like a tractor beam that's taking them, pulling them in this direction, like they're entering into a wormhole, or like parts of their mind start to shut down. Sometimes they may experience heartbeat, like they feel like their heart is racing, but it's nothing like that. It's really just the mind getting very, very quiet that it's able to see this. And it feels like dying for some people. I mean, that's how they describe it, because it's like this last vestige of the self is trying to cling on to for survival. But if you let go and if you keep relaxing without expectation, then, as I always say, when you least expect it, what happens is that the mind experiences cessation. The mind just drops. It's like there's a gap in the awareness of perception and feeling. There's a gap in what's going on with regards to, you know, you experiencing anything. So it's the total cessation of all perception, of all experience, of all feeling, of all consciousness. And so when you're in this space, there's no awareness there. There's no knowledge that you're in that space. There's no um, knowing that you have entered into that space. It's only when you come out, you realize that the mind had gone somewhere. And when the mind is free of all conditions, then it naturally has the tendency to touch what is known as the unconditioned. And that's the Nibbana Dhatu. And it's like what we're doing through this process of going through the jhanas is to cease different coarser aspects of experience until we uncover all the layers, and what remains is the unconditioned element, the Nibbana Dhatu.
Yeah.
And when there's contact with that, the mind experiences an explosion of joy and relief. And as you rightly put, it's like, wow, what was that? And it's for a moment, it's just for a brief moment the mind experiences this, and it's like, wow. And some people may experience dots of light, they may experience dashes of light. And a lot of people will say that's the links of dependent origination. I've said that in the past as well. But I think what happens really is that the contact kicks in to see the feeling and the perception and the rest of the links. And that's how it's being perceived retrospectively, retroactively. And
Hmm.
so after that, if you experience this on retreat, and people do experience this on retreat, I'll tell them, wonderful, this is a great experience. Now just reflect on your mind. What are you experiencing? Take some time to see. You might see that the colors are more vivid around you. You might see that the mind is like floating. It feels relaxed. It feels like nothing can touch it anymore. But reflect on the nature of how you see the emptiness of self. Like, reflect on how you see the world. A lot of people will report back that they do see the impersonal nature of things. They have seen for them that consciousness is not self. They've seen that the self is a collection of different ideas that come together, that the self is a concept, a construct to interact with the world, but they themselves are not self. They see all of it as an impersonal process. And this is a very liberating experience. And this is really the first level of awakening, where the mind is awakened to the dream of existence, which is that this is me, this is mine, this is myself. And now we start to bring those layers away. So we start to realize that actually, no, it's all impersonal.
Yeah, that's the contact. Yeah, the experience is gone. That's. I think it's hard to imagine what it really means that the experience is gone. There is no experience, so there is no talking about something. Everything. What's it's important what happened after this because we have a three kinds of elements: rupa, arupa, and Nibbana Dhatu. This is the Rupa
Right.
Dhatu, Arupa Dhatu, and Nibbana Dhatu. And Nibbana Dhatu is tricky because Rupa Dhatu, it's like everything um, what we can just touch material, yeah,
Right.
some material stuff to simplify. And we have a Arupa Dhatu, it's unmaterial stuff like an ashram, emotion, thoughts, and etc. Yeah. And we think that reality is just two things, but there is something deeper. And talking about Nibbana Dhatu, I don't know. My mind is like have an error how to talk about it because it's not material. It's not immaterial too. You can only see the effects of this when you
Right.
have the mind because when my insight was something like that about this first time because it was for me was very um powerful experience the first time, and I was like I was more surprising than it was
Mm,
like very surprising stuff that what arose. But then when I was reflecting this, it was like I coming this it was like I don't know when it's this starts of this change of consciousness, and in one point it stops, and the mind arose again, but not from the past conditions, but
right.
arose from unconditioned state, and it was like there is a just pure mind.
Yeah.
Pure mind. N- No self, no direction, no everything, just pure experience. And then in the experience arises elements like feelings, body, etc. And this is the moment that the mind really have a some kind of like reboot because
Yes.
it has opportunity to see all these five aggregates in a different way. Because
Yeah.
for a moment we have access for a really arahant state, like for a
Mm,
Buddha state.
right.
And we can just see and reflect after this experience what really happened and how the mind and body and everyone we feels in this experience when we come up from the cessation and when there is contact of Nibbana, because this contact change how we see ourselves. And when we reflect upon, and probably everyone has a different insight and a way how we see this stuff, we can reflect and see that this is not me, this is not myself, this is not so impersonal as we see in words. And
Yeah.
this is really interesting. This is really interesting stuff to talk because this maps of jhana we have pure and simple and elegant map with steps, with practice, not complicated, really simple, relaxed, to go from the level zero to experience Nibbana Dhatu,
Right.
to understand, because I don't know even how to talk about this stuff. I don't have
Yeah.
a words. It's hard to imagine material, immaterial, Nibbana.
Yeah.
So, but when you experience, it's a different stuff. But still, you have a maybe problem. Maybe you have a better words, but I don't know how to talk about this topic. It's mind blowing for me. Like
Yeah.
in terms of you can experience, you can see for yourself if you take a place on the retreat and you go from the state. But I don't know if I can or you or somebody could talk more about it. I think it's better to just experience this on and
Yeah.
see for yourself how it works, to be honest.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think you're right on the dot about that because the more we try to talk about it, the more it becomes within the conceptual framework. But I believe that this is a good point to end here because this will allow us to kind of go into the next topic at some point later to really talk about what awakening is and the Nibbana Dhatu and what I call the three gates of liberation, and understanding maybe the mechanics of what's happening there and Vijnana Manidasanam, the non-reflective or non-manifested consciousness. So these might be topics for future exploration that we can discuss. But this is the journey that we've been on in this discussion, and I think it's been a lot of fun.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you for the lovely conversation, Delson. It was pleasure to talk to you
Thank you. This was
about this
great.
stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.